It's your boy Remoy George Phillip, the first.
And I'm Samantha and Zessie Kifler.
This is Masculinity.
The show that investigates the performance of masculinity in the world today, and you know we spell it with a hard K. Well, Remoy.
Yes, Samantha?
So what are you getting into for the holidays?
Oh, well, I'm just a lucky boy. I have I'm staying in New York. I'll be here in New York. And a lot of friend gatherings. There's a Christmas Eve potluck. There's a couple choices for Christmas Day. Head off to Jersey Lake House, spend some time with friends. And then as New Yorkers do, there's a smattering of like Hanukkah hangs later in the December. So I'm just living it up, you know? You?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Sounds sophisticated. Lake house. Who has a lake house? I want a lake house. Well, I mean, I will be doing my usual thing. I'll be going over to my parents' house with me, the hubby, and I'm excited because my mom is finally going to meet my dog.
Your dog child? Your large child that's a dog?
My very large child that weighs 65 pounds. For those of you who don't know,
I have muscle, just like brawn and muscle.
He's so strong. He's strong. He's 10 months. He has no sense of responsibility.
He's an idiot. No offense.
He destroys everything in his path. Yes, he's getting a little bit more thoughtful, but for the most part, it's just like...
I'm a dumb dog. Hi.
A pit bull running at you. Yeah, he's a pit bull. You know, it's my baby, though. So shout out to Kenji Poo, who just almost took me out just now, right before this recording.
I mean, for folks, yeah, she's being very grateful. For most times we're like talking or not recording. She's yelling at Kenji, telling him to like back down and chill the fuck out. So, you know, parenting, holidays.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like, and I'm grateful for that because he's happy, right? That means he's happy. I mean, do you have to like pee on my foot and like try to take out my ear in the process? No, but we're going to work on that.
Dog people are crazy.
I know. I mean, you wanted a cat, but you know, it worked out this way. It is what it is now. Anyway, but I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the cheer, the joy, the time that I get to spend with my family. But I know that it can also be, you know, a lot of loneliness for folks. Like some people are not talking to their families. Some people don't have families. Some people are like the holidays brings up different things for different people. So I'm also thinking about that.
Yeah,
for sure.
It could definitely be a lonely time, especially with like how much is, you know, glorified about friends, family, and the what like. So last year we kind of talked about that with Justin Leoy, Home Alone for the Holidays episodes. And, you know, it's still very, very, very relevant, especially for men, honestly.
Yeah, for real. And I mean, I think that episode was like a really good pep talk to get through the next few weeks. If anybody needs one before they head into, you know, that long week. That's a really good episode to listen or to re-listen to. So we'll slide that in our show notes for this one. And on another note, I'm ready for NBA Christmas. Now, before I was like way too busy with adulthood. That was like my kickstart starting the whole season. So I really actually cannot wait for that. I'm very excited.
Yeah, like there used to be a moment where I like 2 years in a row, me and Chris Randalls, we went to this Christmas Day Knicks game. Oh, it was always so fun. Then Randall's like abandoned me and left me. And like, I don't watch nobody actually watches basketball anymore. They just listen to the pods or look at ESPN app every once in a while and pretend like they're in there. No, I'm one of those folks now. I mean, I love basketball. Do I watch it? No. Don't tell Jake that. Do I run with the fantasy basketball team with my NGM founder, Jake?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do I watch basketball? No.
So you watch the recaps, you read the recaps. Is that what's going on?
I listen to the pods, baby. I know everything that's going on thanks to the pods.
And then we're going into 2025, which I'm dreading for so many reasons, but I digress. What about you? Are you excited to leave 2024 behind?
Yeah, most of it, 99% of it. There's been moments of like real just glory and greatness, but a majority of it has just been wild and dystopic. So that'd be cool to just let that go.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I got married this year, so like obviously I can only be grateful for 2024.
Grand.
I can't hate on this year, you know.
Well, you can hold multitudes. You can love that and hate the rest of it.
Thank you. Multitudes, always a great reminder. Well, there's at least one reason to look forward to 2025, and we're going to get into that right after the break.
Curious about next-gen men? We're a small part of a much larger movement to undefine masculinity for a brighter future. Our mission is clear: empower the next generation to use their curiosity, empathy, and courage to build a more equitable world. Join the Next Gen Men community as we learn and unlearn together. We're here to support boys and men to break free from limiting stereotypes. We're not just an organization, we're a catalyst for reimagining masculinity and fostering inclusivity. We're here to help open up possibilities for what men and boys can be. Explore the world of Next Gen Men at nextgenmen.ca and join the community to make a difference. Next Gen Men, shaping tomorrow's leaders one step at a time. Join us and help undefine masculinity and empower the next generation of men to lead with empathy and courage.
All right, friends, so we're back. And after the holidays, we're going pretty straight into award season. So it's kind of time to talk about TV.
Ew. Award season? Do you know me? For reals? Contrarian? Like, do I care about this at all? Should I sign out now? Should I get off mic?
Wow. I figured you'd say this. You know, I was prepared for the RGP1 reaction to the award season, yes. But all the reasons why we may hate award season is why it would be cool for us to focus on what we want to see, right? Or at least get into what we've been seeing on TV as far as masculinity goes.
Wow, are you entering like a profession of politics? That was very political of you. Wow, look at the spin doctor over here, Samantha. But I mean, in all facts, we did get to talk with Sarai last year about TV, and that was a fun special episode. But that was predominantly about like boys and growing up watching TV as boys or children. So it could be cool to talk about the adult side of things.
Yeah, and so we're going to get into this a lot more after the holidays, but I thought we might have a little conversation on that now. Today can serve as a bit of a primer, if you will. And we've been seeing so many examples of hypermasculinity in public discourse that sometimes it's hard to forget that examples of thoughtful masculinity do exist.
I don't know if you forgot, but the most beautiful man ever, or at least character of a man, Paul Mescal in Aftersun. Oh my God, the sensitivity, the strength, the vulnerability.
Ooh.
Oof.
Okay. We're going to have to talk about whether or not you watch Gladiator after this. But yeah.
No.
Sure. Obviously, Paul Mescal did his thing in Aftersun. It was really beautiful, thoughtful, moving. And I think you might expect that kind of thoughtfulness from independent film, right? When it comes to like masculinity. So
beautiful, thoughtful, gorgeous storytelling. Sure. Why not? Why wouldn't you want that? Sure. That's fair expectations, no?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm wondering about sitcoms though, right? Like, even though nowadays you don't have to have that cable package to see some of these shows, like you can just go online, right? Like stream your life away, whatever. It feels like there's still kind of a mainstream television that people watch without suggestions from the algorithm, right? Like TV shows do exist.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up as a network TV kid, but are we sure about that? Does that still exist?
Yeah, some come to mind immediately, but they're not really representing healthy masculinity per se, right? It's more like their characters are just trying to figure it out, trying to be better.
Like all of us in reality, sure, yeah.
And if you think about it, how relatable would a show be if they only showed fully evolved human beings, like healthy masculine ideals, right? I feel like we might all feel like shit watching these unattainable ways of being.
I mean, you say unattainable models of masculinity, they're out there, right? Like, it's the heroes we saw on the big screen growing up, or sort of hyper masculine in a way that made us desire that, aspire to be that, want to be that hero, right?
You're right. Actually, you're right. And I'm wondering, actually, who that was for you, baby RGP1, just look into the heroes.
I hate to like retread an old route, but like it's gonna be Will Smith in like Independence Day. Like he was just so muscular and cool and funny and handsome, and Vivica A. Fox was into him. God damn. So that's one that comes to mind from jump.
Yeah, and honestly, one thing that I don't think I ever said this, but like the way that Will Smith was like your hero, he was like my ideal like man, right? My ideal like romantic partner. Like I was like, I need a boyfriend like Will Smith. Where was I going to find him? In the mean streets of Neuilly-Plaisance, France? No one knows. Okay.
Neuilly-Plaisance, all right.
And yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, well, this is not actually my theory, right? Like some well-read professor came up with this. And actually, let me share a quote with you. So Sarah Mackey wrote this paper as an undergrad, which is amazing. And it's called Laughing at Men. It cites various research on the archetypes that exist in American sitcoms. So here we go. Quote, so in the article Sitcoms, 1987, Ronald Berman argues that good comedy has a way of breaking away from ideology. Berman discusses the challenges that arise with a willingness and opportunity to critique and address social problems, create a show that is too socially forward-thinking, and the networks lose interest. Too conservative, and there is a risk of losing a thinking audience. He suggests that comedy as a genre corresponds to the actual world rather than to the ideal world, which is echoed in the application of hegemonic masculinity to real men. The ideal is not necessarily achievable or applicable to actual men or to the men in sitcoms. End quote. So what comes up for you when you hear this quote?
A lot of academic mumbo jumbo. Wow, I'm one of those guys, right? No, I think what it's saying is like, traditional TV, like network TV, those characters that we see, the writers who make those characters and the actors who present them, if they were to make them like these like ideal liberal whatever, people who watch network TV like a lot of us did or do, like wouldn't relate to them, and that wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I love this quote in particular because it's like, yeah, like it wouldn't be ideal for us to just look at depictions of just like perfect, fully realized people that will never be like.
I could watch Paul Mescal all day. What are you talking about? Anyways, keep going.
Okay. Well, I mean, so honestly, you see the struggle that Paul Mescal goes through, right? Like you see like it the way that sitcoms deal with masculinity reinforces the discomfort that we have about talking about masculinity with a hard K, right? Like generally speaking, couching it in comedy makes it easier. So the characters are created in such a way that they mirror that discomfort, and then comedy allows us to laugh about it.
Do you have an example?
Well, I thought you'd never ask, Remoy.
Here we go.
I thought that in light of the holidays coming up, we could have a bit of cheer by playing a game.
Cheer for who? Is this a gift for who? You? Not a gift for me.
That's hilarious.
Was I a bad boy? Is this the coal that you get at Christmas? The Santa coal? No? Sure.
I mean, I feel like people have election fatigue, political fatigue, all around life fatigue.
Reality fatigue, yeah.
Yes, heavy on the reality fatigue, okay? And we've talked a lot about politics recently, so I feel like we need to switch it up.
Fine. Okay, sure. Taking your lead. What is the game? Tell me.
Thank you for hearing me. Well, if you remember last year, we played a little something called Parole de Patriarchy.
Parole de Patriarchy. How could I forget? God, my French has not gotten better over the last year. Whatever, it's fine.
But yeah, so we figured out during this awesome fun game, if the lyrics were unmasking or masking masculinity. And what that means is, were the lyrics reinforcing masculinity as we know it, or were they striving for something more evolved?
Yeah, it's a game that made me feel stupid because I suck at music. I don't know music, but Herman, he was very good at it. So that was cool.
Was amazing at it. And it reminds me we need to do one with books, which maybe we'll have to do that in like 5 years when I read that as much as you do. But anyway, yeah, so here we're going to do something similar. I'm going to show you some TV dads in action, and we'll see if they have their mask on, sort of holding on to traditional masculinity, or if they have their mask off, meaning that they are challenging traditional masculinity. It's kind of like, wax on, wax off, if you will. This is the Miyagi of taking off the mask.
90s kid Samantha here with the Karate Kid reference. Okay, but how do we measure that? How do we measure this?
Actually, that's a really good question. So I thought that we might use traits similar to the ones that Pew Research Center used in that study that we keep talking about because it's so relevant. So, yeah.
Keep talking about it, but I don't remember any of it because feels like eons ago and it was all wrong. So what do I know? But yeah, sure, remind us.
It actually does feel like a lifetime ago. But yeah, so in case you missed it, Pew Research Center did this study measuring how Americans feel about men and masculinity. And apparently Americans feel that we don't value men being open about their emotions, right? AKA them being vulnerable. We just don't value that enough. We don't value them being affectionate, caring, soft-spoken. So basically, if these characters exhibit any of these traits, we'll just call it having their mask off.
Okay. So the opposite is the opposite. So we're saying like men on the screen that I'm going to watch, if they're like risk-taking, assertive, strong, confident, macho, like that's mask on, I presume?
Yeah, so shout out to you for bringing up the other traits that were mentioned in the Pew Research Center. But mask on actually in this case would be like if there's an opportunity to take the mask off, but they still opt to keep it on. That would be
What?
mask.
I don't help me. What?
You're right. Yeah. So basically, if something happens and there's an opportunity to tell the truth, right? There's an opportunity for them to be vulnerable, these men, but then they lie to appear tough or something, then it's mask on. But if they do tell the truth, they do let that vulnerability shine through, then it's mask off.
Okay, I see what. But so we're not doing this like a whole show or a whole character. We're going to be doing like scene by scene or something.
That's right. I'm going to be showing you some scenes from various TV shows over time.
Yeah.
You like
I'm
it.
a TV kid. TV raised me. I used to have a blog called TV Raised Me. So yeah, let's do this. Let's go.
Let's find that and put that in the show notes. But yeah, and for what it's worth, I mostly pick shows that I think you haven't seen, or at least I think you like might have explicitly mentioned something about you being in a hardcore feeding phase at that time. I don't know.
I just grew up on TV. Sure, doubt me, test me, try me. Let's go.
You know what? You're right. Touche. Okay, so you might actually love these shows. We'll see. So let's get into it. Let's see what you feel.
Fine, let's go.
Okay, so we're starting off with a classic. Okay, taking it all the way back to what? The 90s. It was a sitcom, but a little different from how we usually thought of them, with a sarcastic, satirical tone and humor. Any guesses?
From the 90s?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man, for whatever reason, I'm stuck on like TGIF. I'm going to say this is not it, but I'm going to say Hanging with Mr. Cooper. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Shout out to Mark Curry. Shout out to Holly Robinson Pete.
Oh my queen.
Oh, she's so beautiful. She's so gorgeous. She still looks like that. I think she's like 50 something now. I mean, obviously, you know. But while that's a great guess, we are actually going to start off with season 5, episode 2 of Married with Children.
Ooh, rough one. Okay.
So this episode is called Al with Kelly, and it came out September 30th, 1990. I was 5 years old. Al is played by Ed O'Neill, and Kelly is played by the badass Christina Applegate. So any chance you remember this episode, Al with Kelly?
The episode, no, but the show, yes. You said sarcastic earlier. That's almost like an understatement. This show is like acerbic and satirical, but just aggressive in ways that you could get away with in the 90s.
Acerbic. I feel like that's like a $2,000 word right there. But yeah, yes. Spot on. So in this episode, Al and Kelly are hanging out alone in the house together. And here is how it's going.
Now, Kelly, we're going to be spending a whole week together. And you might hear a yippee or a yow from me. That doesn't mean I don't miss your mama. Just like the changing of the locks don't mean I don't want her back. Just adults express their sadness in different ways. And I express mine by doing the bump. Life is good. To me.
To us. I meant 2 beers for you and none for me. Daddy, you know, we're gonna have a week to ourselves, and I thought that it would be a good idea if we did something together. You know, we never have.
Well, sure we did. Well, the day you were born, I carried you from the hospital. And 10 years later, we had ice cream, and now, here we are.
Okay. Well, how about if we just talk?
Great. So, how's school?
I'm out of school, Daddy.
Good. So, how old are you?
All right, so Remoy, can you describe this scene visually for the audience?
Yeah, so it seems like, you know, they're in the typical set, which is their home, and what's Christina Applegate's character's name? Kelly?
Kelly, yeah.
Al and Kelly have the house to themselves. Everybody else is away. And, you know, Kelly's like interested in connecting with her dad, and Al is in some capacity trying, but using jokes and humor to kind of soften the blow. And also, it becomes apparent he doesn't even know who his daughter is.
Yep. All right. So does Al have his mask on or his mask off?
Well, first I got to ask, how do you relate to this scene?
That's a really good question. When I saw this, I was like, damn, that's rough. Because I know that even though it's like super over the top and like, oh, I left you on top of the car type thing, you know, like there are a lot of daughters who do feel this, right? Like their dad doesn't really know them. Their dad is like some dads are around, but not really around type of thing, right? They just want to make sure that their daughter is like, you know, doing well in life, but the details they're not really about. And so that's something that on one level, you know, my dad is kind of around, kind of not. He lives across the pond. So I know that my dad knows me, but I relate to the piece of like wanting to spend time together and your dad just being like, oh, yeah, let's do that. But also, why should we do, like, why?
Yeah, so like in this clip, like Al Bundy or Ed O'Neill is like playing it kind of vulnerably and sweet and earnest in some ways.
Yeah.
So that's like mask off, but he's like using humor or then like turning into his like stoic self at times as well. So it's mask on. I think that's how the game is played, right?
Yeah. And I think I would agree with that. Like the fact that he's there, he's like, you know, he starts out the scene talking about how he and her mom are, you know, beefing basically. And like that, I feel like is a very mask off approach, right? Like, you know, the words might not be like all thoughtful, like therapy speak or whatever, but he's saying how he feels. He's saying how he deals with it. He's like actually telling her that the way that he deals with pain is by doing, what was it, the bump or something? So yeah, so he, you know, he's being vulnerable in saying that he might not be vulnerably dealing with this pain. But when it comes to the two of us as a father and daughter, that's when it becomes apparent that even if in this particular moment he's down to have his mask off, most of their relationship, he does have his mask on. And I think it's interesting because like there are random moments of vulnerability from Al throughout the show, but this is someone who has mostly subscribed to the mask and it comes through in the scene. And
I mean, Al Bundy is such like a classic, like satirical character throughout 90s sitcoms. But it's funny because a lot of father figures in sitcoms throughout the decade weren't to this extreme, but very similar. So no matter how extreme of a satire this was, it was also kind of very standard for how father figures were shown on TV, whether to normalize them like that paper was talking about, or just to kind of help us laugh at like the sadness of it all or like the problems of it all, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Next, we're moving on to the next scene.
More. Great. The game's still going on.
You know what I don't tell you enough is how inspiring your enthusiasm is.
What do you expect from me?
Glee, joy, exhilaration. All the things that make you...
You've known me for 14 years.
14 years. Old as hell. Yes.
We ain't young, that's for sure.
You're right. Well, I mean, here's something you'll like, right? So we're continuing on with the 90s.
I'm still out here dating like I'm young, though. What's up?
You know what? Yes. Shout out to you for that. Just 25-year-old Remoy, you know what I'm saying?
But like a mature, thoughtful 40-year-old, 25-year-old Remoy. What's up?
You know what? I'll take that back. 40-year-old Remoy with 25-year-old skin.
Hey.
It's true, guys. It's true. You don't see him on the socials, but that skin continues to pop, okay? But yeah, so 90s, yay. We're moving on to a show that many folks will remember as one of the few at the time with an all-black cast. So this is kind of like your quintessential family sitcom with everyone's favorite nerd. So any guesses? Think you might get this one?
Oh, sure. I did a whole part of a Not Past It episode dedicated to the show and our hero and our tragic hero of the show. This is Family Matters, and you're talking about Carl Winslow.
Absolutely. So we will obviously be citing, you know, that wonderful piece of work in our show notes so you can see what RGP1 does when he's not unmasking masculinity. But yeah, you guessed it. It's Family Matters. So the dad is Carl Winslow, played by Reginald Johnson. In this episode, which came out February 9th, 1996, Carl's son...
For my birthday, I just turned 12 at that time.
Oh, that's true. February 8th, yes. Carl's son, Eddie, played by Darius McCrary, is getting a talking to for coming home drunk after a frat party. So here goes.
Do you find this amusing, Edward?
No, sir.
Because I don't find it remotely amusing when my teenage son comes home drunk.
Oh, Dad, I'm 19 years old now. I'm in college now anyway. And besides, last night was the first time I got drunk in my entire life.
Well, Edward, you know, you are underage. So that one better be your last.
Come on, Dad, lighten up.
What do you mean, lighten up? Edward, your mother and I send you to college to get an education, not to party hardy.
Look, I study hard all week. When the weekend comes, I want to relax. I mean, that's the whole reason why I joined the fraternity, so I can have some fun.
I don't object to fun. I love fun. In fact, I'm the grand funk master of fun. But I don't need to take a drink to have a good time, and neither do you.
Why do you always do this?
Why do I always do what?
Limit me. Build walls around me.
Edward, this is not about walls. This is about roads. And drinking will take you down a road that leads to a dead end.
I just saw some TV writers writing. Oh, there's just like so much metaphorical monologues and dialogues in there, and just good times. But we see a 90s dad being very stern and reprimanding his son in a very traditional father-son mode. A trope you saw often on TV at that time.
And is this Carl with mask on or mask off?
I don't know if this is like true to like how you outlined earlier, but I think it's predominantly mask on, like just being this masculine, strong, stern, no quote unquote vulnerability or empathy for his son or understanding or trying to meet his son somewhere in the middle. So yeah, mask on.
Right. Yeah. I felt the same way. Like, this is very much like the tough dad approach, right? Like, my house, my rules, not really room for understanding or really even hearing Eddie's side of it. It's a full shutdown, right? I mean, I'm not a parent, so I don't want to speak out of turn here, but, you know, if it does feel like there's an opportunity for understanding and conversation along with the accountability. And I don't see that here.
Yeah, I think it's hard to, I can't imagine being a parent, and especially in this character, like Carl's a cop, so he's seeing his son being underage drinking and potentially driving. It's not easy, but, you know, for like everybody watched network TV at this point in like the mid 90s, right? So this is like 100 million plus people watching this and could probably relate to it in many different ways. So I can understand why it was there.
And again, like, right, like, not necessarily a comedic conversation. There were some comedic laugh track moments here, right? But it's mostly, yeah, just like a stern conversation. And you see how, like, this is like the kind of, like the integrity part of masculinity, right? Like almost what we were talking about with the military masculinity with Dr. Ray Hinojosa, where it's like a very kind of military cop-like approach, which, you know.
Went well with the 90s.
Well, and we're gonna keep it going. Woo! I'm excited about this. With one of our faves. And no, this time we are not talking about Uncle Phil, but another Phil, Dunphy from Modern Family.
Modern Family, classic, one of a lot of awards, speaking of awards, but, you know, that's a huge time jump we're going. It's like 10, 15 years, 20 years maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I feel like old school dads, new school dads, if you will, it is a big jump.
Well, you know, actually, that seems like a good time to take a short break. So, more good and bad zaddies right after this.
Not the zaddies.
I actually found out later by a friend that Matthew tried to kill himself after that.
What does it look like to go from a perpetrator of violence to an undaunted ally for those who are vulnerable?
So, I mean, that made me feel really guilty, and I couldn't eat anything, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. I mean, I thought I deserved what he got. that's when I started talking to you.
This is the story of Lewis, a 12-year-old who went through a remarkable transformation to become the young man he is today. It's also one of the most powerful things I've ever recorded as part of Breaking the Boy Code, a podcast centered on the inner lives of boys and what it looks like for parents and educators to raise the next generation of men. Created in collaboration with Next Gen Men Podcast Network, listen to Breaking the Boy Code podcast wherever you get podcasts.
And we're back. So Modern Family, this episode I want to share was released in 2017. Did you ever watch that show?
Am I American? Of course I am. Do I like it? No, of course not.
That might be the most text and response that I've ever gotten from you, and I like it. All the multitudes of Remoy.
See?
So I'm going to play a scene from season 9 where Phil is trying to test his survival skills on a camping trip. Now, the scene happens right after Phil accidentally set his watercraft on fire with some type of firework device. So here goes.
Sometimes it's just a matter of thrusting your chest out, staking your claim, and letting nature know there's a new sheriff in town. I descended into the water attempting to retrieve my gear. I encountered slippery rocks, a cold, brisk current, and although I have no photographic evidence of it, a sea serpent. My ensuing thrashing stunned a passing trout. I then foraged some wild blueberries and honey from what turned out to be a not altogether abandoned hive. This goes to show you, I don't need all that fancy equipment. Phil Dunphy can survive in the wild. That sounded big, didn't it? Good thing I smell like berries, honey, and raw fish, so I'm basically all 3 courses of a bear's favorite meal.
Lord knows I love some Phil Dunphy. So does the rest of America. I'm just like you, everyone. We all love Phil Dunphy.
Literary stars. They're just like us. All right. So you saw the clip. I mean, I feel like the audience can kind of hear it, but just in case, can you describe what you saw in the scene, Dr. RGP1?
Phil is doing some like survivalist stuff in front of a camera, kind of vlogging about it. And he's kind of faking it till he makes it. And he's out in the wild, in the wilderness, and trying to pretend like he knows what he's doing when failing miserably. All up until he is covered in honey and blueberries, and there may be a bear around, and he has to run away in shame. It's great. Hilarious. Phil being Phil.
Like, just good TV, really. So does Phil have his mask on or off?
I mean, both. Like, what works for Phil Dunphy is he's always the butt of the joke and is willing to be vulnerable whether he knows it or not, and like show just show who he is, all of who he is. In this little clip, he's like trying to, be a survivalist, pretend to be a little bit more macho than he actually is. So he has the mask on in that portion, but then towards the end, as it all kind of falls off in typical hilarious Phil Dunphy fashion, mask off.
It's like, I like the scene because it's both, exactly like you said. Like, it's only when confronted with death that Phil decides, maybe let me just go ahead and get out of here. I work in real estate and I live in suburban LA. Like, perhaps I won't be fighting off a bear in the woods. But up until that moment, he was down to pretend like he might be able to until he heard the bear kind of check him back into reality and be like, actually, maybe not that.
You haven't even mentioned that Al Bundy's in this show. Ed O'Neill is in this show playing the dad of father-in-law of Phil. We're still reprising another father figure role, but in a very different era, very different stakes. Plays it somewhat similar times as this machismo Zoomer dad. Not even Zoomer, whatever it is before that. He's a boomer. But still kind of finding spaces to be vulnerable and honest and loving even towards Phil. So it's a cool evolution in TV.
It is a good evolution in TV. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of Phil's character is based in trying to like appeal to Ed in some ways. Or
Jay.
Thank you, Jay. In this. And so like, shout out to Phil Dunphy because I feel like he is a character who really embodies that struggle of vulnerability in one's masculinity, but then also feeling like you consistently have to prove it, right? Like, I feel like that's a character who is like really secure in some ways, and in other ways he feels like, his masculinity might be taken away if, for example, he doesn't do the survival trip in the woods. So just like a brilliant way that comedy allows us to explore that, which is great. You know, for our next one, we're going over to Animation Land for another fan favorite. Okay, so I'll let you guess what you think it is.
Don't watch animated shows. I think you know me. 14 years, no?
I did know that. I did know
that. Do that again?
But sometimes, sometimes you're surprised. People surprise you. I leave room for surprise.
Multitudes,
okay?
I get it. All right.
Yeah. But I know you're, thespians only, Paul Mescal's and the like. So it's Bob's Burgers, right? People love Bob. People love this show. Bob owns a burger joint, has 3 kids with his wife, Linda, who's like this shipper, fun, kind of boisterously out there person. So, you ready?
I've always been told to watch Bob Burger, so this is the way to do it. So here we go.
I shaved that part.
You must have been very determined.
Thank you.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the hot wax on your legs. And then we put these strips on your legs and pull them off. And it kinda hurts. A lot.
Dad! I don't know if I can do this. Dad, you have to do it with me.
What? No way.
Yes, it's like when you got that flu shot to show me it was okay.
Yeah, that was brave of me. But
please? No. I know I act tough, but I'm not.
Oh my God, the crying. Okay, I'll do it.
Yay, scrotal wax!
No, gee, not scrotal, just leg.
Oh, boo.
RGP1, can you please describe what you saw for the audience?
Yeah, Bob's daughter is going to get her legs waxed for the first time and naturally gets terrified, so asks her father to join her, and he tries to pretend tough and too good for it, but immediately is like being a supportive father and jumps right in, and they both hold hands as they both get their flesh torn off by hot wax.
So would you say that Bob has his mask on or his mask off?
Kind of the same as like last time, a little bit on, but mostly off. He's just like a supportive, sweet dad being there for his kids. So I'd say mostly off.
I'd agree. And I feel like I especially love this, like, that his daughter mentioned that he's done other things before so that she could know that it was okay. I just love this mask off parenting approach. Like, that's like very hands-on parenting that sometimes, we don't expect dads to do. So it's great.
So I got to ask, like, what's your experience with this and your pops?
Well, I mean, if there's anybody out there with an African dad who got waxed with you and let you know it was okay, our email is masculinitypodcast@gmail.com. I've got to hear the story. Please let me know. My dad did no such thing. Actually, I mean...
Can't say I'm surprised, but sure, I get it.
But really, like, usually this type of dynamic occurs between a father and a son, right? Like, I'm going to teach you how to ride a bike. It's okay. You can hit a baseball type of situation. It's definitely not a dad getting a wax with his daughter. So, like, I love that. I really appreciated this scene a lot because it shows caring. It shows caretaking on the part of the dad, which is something that, Pew Research Center's findings basically said that we don't value enough of men.
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Paul Mescal with his daughter, going to the spa together, loving each other, caring for one another, being sensitive. Yeah, After Sun, everybody go watch it.
Actually, yeah, please do watch that. It was really good. All right, so we've got a couple more. The next one is from a sitcom with one of my personal faves, Cedric the Entertainer. I met him when I was 15. He was very nice. Took a picture with us.
Wow, flex. All right.
Yeah. I haven't watched this show in its entirety, but it's got really good moments.
I'm assuming this is a newer one, so it's the one with Schmidt from like New Girl. I haven't seen the show either. I don't know what it's called, but I know Schmidt's in it.
Yes.
Schmitty.
Yeah.
Max Greenberg, baby.
Yeah, this is a show called The Neighborhood. In this scene, Calvin, the dad, played by Cedric the Entertainer, his son Marty, and their neighbor, played by the man who plays Schmidt, whose real name I can't remember at the moment.
Max Greenberg.
Yes. Are 3 grown men trapped in a treehouse built for kids. So here it goes.
Okay, all right, then. You might want to hurry this thing up. This tree is getting sick of Dave, too.
Okay, Dave, you're closest to the door. I'm gonna slide 2 steps to the left, Dad. You take 2 steps to the right. That should balance the floor. Ready? Go. Okay. All right. Dave, you climb out. Dad, as soon as he does, you take another step to the left. I'm gonna take 2 steps back.
Oh, so this is like the electric slide meets the Cupid shuffle.
That's on me, man.
Okay, Dave, go.
Okay. For the record, there are no two men that I'd rather be trapped in.
Get out of here, Dave!
Okay, Dad, it's your turn.
No, son, you go. All right, this is my fault. If I'd listened to your suggestions, we wouldn't be here in the first place. I just got carried away.
It's okay, man. You were just trying to make it fun. The same way you did when you built ours.
Thanks. And I shouldn't have called you soft, because you're not.
You mean that?
Yeah. I mean, the way you kept your cool and figured out a way to get us out of here, there's nothing soft about that.
Thanks, Dad.
Bring it in, son. All right. Bring it out. Bring it out.
Again, the audio here paints a pretty good picture. But just in case, Remoy, can you tell the people what you saw?
Yeah, there's 3 characters, Said, Schmidt, and Said's son, I believe, Marty, right? And they're hanging out in this not very well constructed treehouse, and it's about to fall, and they're all stressed and struggling, and there's a lot of bad piped in TV audience laughter, and it's boring CBS TV comedy, but it's fine, it's cute, and they're just trying to survive and not die in this treehouse that's about to crash and fall.
It's very sitcom-y. So would you say that Calvin has his mask on or off?
At first, he's like playing it tough, but then quickly like admits to his faults or how he was wrong and didn't trust his son. He uses the language like soft and not soft, which is a little tricky, but he's doing his best. And especially for like, again, kind of back to the 90s, everybody's watching these sitcoms on network television. And like that paper, that quote you quoted is saying it's like giving us a chance to like look at kind of traditional men characters that most of America wants to see and kind of laugh at it and kind of entertain it in a way that makes them feel less insecure, but also gives them something to aspire to being better than.
I mean, first off, like a parent apologizing is already great because as millennials, like I feel like perhaps we may be more open to that as parents or more open with that as parents, but our parents were like, okay, here's some food. My apology is that I clothe and feed you, that you have a roof over your heads. Like, I will not be apologizing tomorrow, today, or the day after that. So Calvin, who is someone that would probably qualify as a boomer or maybe Gen X, apologizing to his son specifically for calling him soft is honestly everything. I mean, it's like literally challenging his own masculinity or masculinity with a hard K, and then essentially like teaching indirectly his son to also challenge his own and that, vulnerability and authenticity are okay.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's cool to like, especially think about what we watched earlier, Carl Winslow and Eddie versus this, like a father apologizing to his son, a black father apologizing to his black son. That's pretty special and cool, not just to see it on TV, but what it can like then do for an audience who may not have seen that modeling before. So that's pretty special.
I think that's great, yeah.
Freaking network TV. Wow, I can't believe I said that. Okay.
Isn't that wild? Like to see the evolution, right? I love that you said like, kind of created that juxtaposition because it's like, yeah, like the evolution of like something like this that came out, very recently. I think that this episode is like from 2021 or something like that. So yeah, like being able to see how father-son relationships between in Black families have evolved and being able to like call out that being called soft or calling your son soft is not helpful. It's not okay. And it's actually something that deserves an apology is literally incredible. Like I kind of want everybody to watch this episode. And I think you've seen our next one. It's about an immigrant family who just moved to Orlando. Any guesses?
Yeah, this is definitely Eddie Wong and fresh off the boat, baby.
That's right. Fresh off the boat. People love this show. So in this scene, Lewis is played by Randall Park, and his young son, Eddie, it's based on Eddie Wong, is going to a movie. He's going on a movie date, and Lewis is chaperoning, right? So they go to the date's house to pick her up, and here is how it goes.
Hi, Eddie. Hi, Hi, Mr. Wong. Hi, Allison.
Hey there, Eddie. You must be Eddie's dad. Hi, Gary Olson.
Hi, I'm Lewis. I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know your daughter will be in good hands.
We're going to see the new Romeo and Juliet movie.
Really? I hear that's a hip modern remake set in the town of Verona Beach.
Are you a Shakespeare fan, Gary?
Been a bard head since college.
Me too, Brute. Hey, since I'm driving the kids to the movie, why don't you come along? We'll all see it together.
Dad?
Really? No, I hate to impose.
What fates impose that men must needs abide. It boots not to resist both wind and tide.
Would you say that Lewis's mask is on or off?
I mean, I think for this most part, his mask is completely off. He's just sweet, vulnerable, supportive, kind, open, all the things.
Yeah, and I think coming up, it would have been tough to see this kind of representation, right? Like, I think this show started in the mid-2010s. I mean, like, when I think back to the conversation we had with Dr. Lou about the hierarchy of masculinity, I think this, like, also applies to the previous clip that we watched. It feels like dads of color, and especially Asian dads in this case, like, are sometimes put in a position where they have to, like, defend their masculinity even more, right? So I think it's great to see just like the authentic nerdism coming out, just nerding out. And then like also, you know, friendship between grown men, right? Just nerding out over Shakespeare.
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate here, play the other side. Like Eddie Wong wasn't a big fan of his own show. Like he notably had furious fights in the first season that he was involved with, trying to show an honest depiction of what his life was growing up in the 90s in Orlando, Florida, which included a lot more violent racism and othering and things of this nature. So watching this scene, though it is cute, and in one way it is kind of like showing like a racially universal, loving, whatever, I wonder, like, in 1993, an Asian dad shows up to a white person's house and he's treated so sweetly and accepted, and they can nerd out in this very way. It's something aspirational, but was it true? And whatever. And then going back to like, yeah, it's something we could nerd out about, but like, again, like how Asians are depicted in America as the model minority, or men specifically are desexualized. Like, love Randall Park, but Lewis is definitely one of these characters who's not as masculine as white male characters are shown, even at this period of time. And so you have to like hold that to understand like how that's continuing some unfortunate myths and or hurting people, but also helping people at the same time. So you got to hold it all. The multitudes, baby.
Yeah, I think that's super well put. Like, I had not been aware of Eddie Wong, like, disliking the show and, like, having fights about the show, because all I knew about it was that it was based on his life. And I think that he was a producer for at least part of it. So I think it's a really important thing to kind of create the context around the show and understand that, yeah, like, well, it's great to, like, have depictions of men being thoughtful and stuff. Like, we don't live in a vacuum. None of that stuff happens in a vacuum. And you have to be really connected to the historical and cultural context of where that comes from. If it was based on Eddie's life, which it was, and it's almost like this like revisionist history of what they went through to make things seem a lot better than they actually were, a lot friendlier than they actually were. I mean, like, that being kind of like left out of the story, I think, is what contributes to history repeating itself, right? Like, kind of having this like nice glaze of happiness and togetherness that never existed. So really astute commentary. And I'm actually really curious to hear from the audience how you feel about the scene, how you feel about Fresh Off the Boat. If you did watch it, like, you know, does Remoy's commentary ring true to you? Like, do you agree? Did you think that? Did you know that? I want to hear from you. We already gave you your email in case you have the African dad that went to get waxed with you, but we definitely want to hear about this, probably even more. So masculinitypodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up. Let us know.
Well, you know, I think I want to play now. I think it's my turn.
Okay. Oh, look at that, folks. He's a game lover now. I mean, you're pretty good at it. So.
Look, multitudes, just keeping people on their toes. I'm Remoy George Philp the First. You can't pin me down. Come on.
I love how you spun that. A storyteller, a literati. Behold.
Time to get into politics. Everybody else seems to be. Might as well.
Nice. So you want to share a show with me now, is what you're saying? Like you actually have a clip that you want to share with me? I'm into it.
Well, there's a show in like the offline moments I've mentioned a time or two. Let me find a clip.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm assuming that this is from Shrinking. Harrison Ford, Jason Segel.
Right. Yeah. All three of these characters or these actors are playing therapists in like different stages of their careers. Jason Segel plays a character named Jimmy. Jessica plays Gabby. And they both are therapists who work in a clinic run by the old head therapist.
Ah, and that's Harrison Ford.
Correct. His name is Paul. Paul runs the clinic. Naturally, Paul is the mean old curmudgeon and Jimmy is the sweet one, always seeking Paul's validation.
I think I need to watch this show. This is perfect. It's very situational comedy. I'm into it. It sounds like the perfect premise to like challenge masculinity and stuff. So I'm into it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is a pretty good clip. Yeah.
Wait, so what's the context?
Yeah. For this one, so a lot of the series revolves around Jimmy and Paul also being dads. Paul, played by Harrison Ford, is much older. Jimmy is around our age-ish, but they're fathers, and let's just say they've been shitty ones, shitty dads in the past.
Yeah, the quintessential dad. Are you a shitty dad? Are you a good dad? Were you here? Were you not? Yeah, that's always the tension.
Well, I'll be interested to see how you feel about this scene, because in this one, Jimmy and Paul, they're actually talking to one of Jimmy's patients' fathers. Like, this father cares about his hurting son, but he's not sure how to help him. And he doesn't trust this whole therapy thing. So Jimmy and Paul are trying to, do their best to talk him through how to feel about it all.
I feel like I might take this scene and just like watch it for various dads I know. I feel like this might be like a manual for what to do, what not to do. I guess I'll find out in a second.
This was supposed to be 3 court-ordered anger management sessions. But you guys got in there and fucked with my boy's head. Now he acts like everything's my fault, because that's what you people do.
So I take it you're not a huge fan of therapy.
Therapy is never successful overnight, but eventually it does help you identify and change troubling emotions and thoughts and behaviors. I really think that if you gave it a chance...
Seriously?
You really think that now is the time to turn him around on therapy?
I shouldn't have to remind you, Paul, that you're on my team. Tim, maybe don't think of us as therapists. Think of us as a couple of dads, one of whom loves his paddle very much.
Look, I was right where you are, estranged from my kid. I cheated on her mom. And when she moved away with my daughter, I didn't fight hard enough because I was so ashamed. I missed her first recital. Her first menses.
Jesus, Paul.
Yeah, man, what the hell?
When my wife died, I could not even look at my daughter. So I hid from her in booze and pills. Right when she needed me the most, I fucking blew it.
And she still talks to you?
It is a miracle, but yes. Trying to prove myself to her every day.
So, you're both terrible parents.
Well, he is.
You're nagging me a lot today.
You know what the police told me? Sean didn't even fight back. He just let them beat him. Why would he do that?
I think he wanted to hurt himself. I think he is carrying a lot of guilt about how mad he is at you.
The guy he loves most in the world.
Y'all should have seen him when he was a boy. Little dimple. Always grinning. But after he got back from over there, it was like living with a stranger. He was so angry. I didn't know how to help him. Hell, I still don't.
Come back with us and talk to him.
No.
Listen, Tim.
All right. You said your piece. Thank you for the conversation. I feel more awful now than I did an hour ago. That what therapy is?
Yeah, pretty much.
No.
Look, you don't have to talk to him. but you should.
You know, they're talking, they're relating, they are sort of unearthing secrets that a lot of people might be too ashamed to admit to each other. And I feel like that opens a door for relatability and vulnerability for the dad who's unwilling to go to therapy with his son, who I assume did some sort of service, some sort of a military service. And yeah, they're having the conversation and just being very real about their transgressions.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. The patient, Sean, had just returned from the military, a different person, young black man from serving overseas, and he's having a hard time. And he is getting therapy from Jimmy, Jason Segel's character, but he's still having a challenging time with his father. So hence why therapist Jimmy and therapist Paul go to the father to kind of work with him, or to talk to him and kind of earnestly push him to like meeting his son in the middle. So all of these men, masks on, masks off. What do you think?
Well, the therapists, I think, have their masks off, right? They're like being super real about, you know, how they were bad dads for reasons or others, right? Like they were dealing with their own stuff. So, you know, there's like space for compassion and accountability for themselves, which I love, which I think is very much a mask off approach. And I guess the dad of the ex-military dude, he has his mask off in the sense that he is listening, right? He's opening up about what's going on with his son, but the mask is not off enough for him to reconsider therapy, reconsider really delving in and like having those conversations, those really hard conversations that you can tell the therapist had in order for them to get to a point where they're able to just kind of unearth like these really uncomfortable truths about themselves, right? So I would say mask off for the most part for Harrison Ford and Jason Segel. I don't remember the character names. And then for the dad whose son is a patient, I'm going to say mask on. Mask off for part of it, but he finishes putting the mask back on. He's like, no, thank you.
Yeah, this show's fun. Like, it's always dancing between all those kind of moments where men are being honest and vulnerable and then immediately undermining it with the joke and or characters playing into trope. Like Harrison Ford's character, Paul, is literally like this old, cranky curmudgeon that hates everybody and makes fun of everybody and is very sarcastic and quick-witted. And Jason Segel's so sweet and endearing. It's interesting because it's like, as we're kind of seeing through all these shows, there's multiplicity of mask on, mask off, but it's cool to kind of see this very evolved, like 2024 version of it, but still holding on to some of those characteristics we saw in dads and men in the 90s shows.
So we went on a TV journey today.
It was a journey. We have been on one, a gamed journey, a gamified one, which I don't know if I'm thrilled about, channeling my inner Harrison Ford, but sure, whatever. Couldn't we all want to be a little Harrison Ford inside of us all? No?
I think we do.
Indiana Jones?
Probably the Han Solo one, but yeah.
Ew, gross.
Nice. All right. So yeah, I mean, we did travel through the land of sitcoms and TV zaddies, so to speak. It's daddies. We'll talk about what zaddies are later. Okay.
I thought they're not the same thing. I don't know what the.
Nope. Yeah, laughing at how men have been portrayed on the screen over the decades.
Right. Yeah, but then it kind of like it sneaks up on you, right?
I think so. I mean, it boils down into that quote from the academic paper, like, these characters are just meant to make us laugh.
Or, are we, hoping to aspire to be them? Since they're like men, leaders, dads that we're seeing on the big screen, like, that's kind of like the big question. Do we want to be like them, or are we just supposed to laugh at them?
And that's the question, folks. And actually, we've asked a lot of them today. I.e., do you think your dad would have ever gotten their legs waxed with you?
FYI, my answer is no, but, whatever.
How does the masculinity and fresh off the boat track for you?
I kind of love to say it, but I'm in the Eddie Wong camp.
Okay, so from our audience, Remoy, the audience.
Wow, the abandonment, the neglect just continues.
Never, but we got to keep it contextualized.
I mean, speaking of context, daddy issues, but whatever, that's not what this episode's about. But anyways, for you and all your daddy issues out there, or otherwise, you can leave your thoughts in our inbox like Samantha mentioned earlier, or on our website at masculinitypod.com. Or why don't you just give us a gift with 5 bows on it?
He does mean 5 stars.
5 stars, 5 stars.
That'll be a great gift to end our year, honestly.
1 year down, another interesting one to go.
Absolutely. It is not going to be an easy one.
Well, to say the least, maybe, I'm sure.
But I'm excited to see what we uncover, what stories we discover.
Me too, and until then, it's your boy, Remoy George Phillip, the first.
And I'm Samantha Zessie Kiflak. Thank you so much for listening.
Peace.
Ciao.
I still don't really know what that is, but people say it. Kids
I'll tell you later.